Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sandro Forte's Masterclass. We should be starting in just few seconds. I just need few confirmation from all of you. You can hear us fine. You can see us fine. Just send me messages on the chat box saying that you can hear and you can see both of us. I can see lots of hello coming and fine. Yes, yes, yes. So lots of hello and yes coming over. Great. So we are on track. So all of you can hear and see us very clean. So let's begin the session here today. Firstly, I'm very grateful for Sandro to be here on this masterclass and accepting the invitation for being here. You can also mention me your countries. Where are you joining from? Any country you're joining from, please do mention your country names as well on the chat box. We love to hear you and we love to recognize you wherever you're joining from. All right, let's begin. Most of you already know me and Sandro as well. Those who don't know me, I'll rather start with my quick introduction for you. Yes, so let's start. Before I start with my introduction, I would give some simple guidelines to you. So you can just put your broadcast button and you will be able to see us live. Just in case if you can't, if you have your screen frozen in between, you can always press the button on top, which will show as a reconnect. So you will be back in the room with us. All right, so I'm Leena Parwani from Dubai. I'm a CEO of LPS Financial Brokers in Dubai and in insurance from last 7 years. And from last 7 years, been qualifying as top of the table member every single year since I started my insurance career. And that's so fascinating career being with MDRT actually, building up lots of connection all across and enjoying the work. I've been associated with MCC committee for last 4 years, and I'm country chair for UAE from last 2019 September. Another a month or two to go, and I'll say bye for that. But I enjoy this volunteering position. I have 2 beautiful kids. My daughter is 19 and my son is 12. I also run my YouTube channel. You can reach me out on different channels of social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Primary objective of my YouTube channel is to empower my client and avoid having anybody being a victim of mis-selling. So they know some basics. That's what I'm passionate about. I've spoken to MDRT annual meetings for Connection Zone. That was one of the greatest opportunity I got it. And since then, I've been speaking in UAE for different insurance companies. Whenever they invite us and I share my experience with MDRT, and I enjoy doing that. My hobby is to travel and also to connect with unknown people around the world. So can imagine what best could be being in MDRT, because that's what you get to do there, being with a lot of new people, new faces, and learning more about them. So I think in the last 7 years, my journey with MDRT was incredible. I really enjoy that one. All right, here is a time to introduce our speaker of the day. I would say that, yes, most of you already know him. Like, he's definitely a celebrated speaker. And yes, I just now can't thank him enough for being my friend. I have his formal introduction, which I'll start, but I do want to have some more lines from my side to add on to that. Right. Sandro is probably one of the most recognized face in financial services. He is 29-year TOT producer, running a multiple award-winning and highly respected business in UK. His achievement led him to write a best-selling book, Dare to Be Different, with over 500,000 copies sold worldwide. Wow. His success has taken him as a speaker to all over 80 countries. He has transformed the lives of millions of advisors, I would say that. He has weekly podcasts going on, Sandro Forte podcast. You can find him on Spotify as well. I do listen to him there, where he talks to many well-known sports and business people on how they also achieve the success and overcome challenges. And if at all that was not enough, Sandro has raised £14 million for charities across the world. That's awesome. And as I said, I will add my line in his introduction because I know him since 2013. That was the first MDRE day in Dubai, where he was the first speaker, 9 a.m. And I was like, since that day, he inspired so much to me. And I didn't know the journey will go that far, that he will become my invisible mentor. And I will be still following him, and without him knowing him, that what all I'm following him with. But yes, many times he did help me, and I would definitely share this magic book, which is called Dare to Be Different. If you really want to be different in this industry of financial professional, this is the book to go. Here, I like to give the floor to Sandro. Sandro, I think I've spoken a lot, so I give you the floor.
Well, thank you, Leena, and hello everyone. I've been keeping one eye on the chat room actually, and I can see. Forgive me, I can't mention everyone, of course, because we have over 300 people with us already. But you know, good friends like Chris Dungworth, David Braithwaite, Audrey Woodhouse, my great friend from South Africa, Cobus Klein, my dear friend from Italy, of all places, Marco Iacono, and to all of you, thank you so much for joining us. Karen Buxman, Vanessa Animas from Mexico. Amazing that we've got so many people joining us from all around the world. But there is one person that I need to thank, of course. It is the lady who called me around 3 weeks ago and said, how about we do a webinar for all of our friends around the world in the UAE and India and all these other great places. So Leena Parwani is the person who has to take all the credit for this event today. But the thing I want to do, rather unusually, is I want to start by thanking all of you for finding the time. I know for many, rather short notice, but the fact that you have invested this time today says a lot about who you are as individuals. And what I hope in the next hour and 15 minutes or so is that I can share with you six ideas, 6 secrets in many ways that will help you to take your business, but also your life to a new level. Now, this is the moment when I'm used to speaking on stages where production companies are working my slides, they're worrying about the lighting. Already we had a technical problem with the green screen. So this is where it all goes a bit crazy because I need to try and organize the slides and already I don't see where I click on my slides. But anyway, the slides are not very important. What's really important, okay. Leena's going to do that for me, I guess. I don't see the change slides thing. Anyway, so there's our first little technical hiccup. What's really important is that we are going to share with you today 6 really important things that will help you all to become more successful in life and business. Now, for those of you who speak before, you know that no Sandro Forte presentation is complete without me talking a little bit about mindset. What goes on up here? I have met some very, very experienced, very technically qualified advisors and business people who don't have the right mindset and they fail. Equally, I've met many inexperienced people who don't work for the best companies. They don't necessarily sell the cheapest products, but yet they are successful in spite of those things. And the main reason why is they have a very strong mindset. Now, of course, it would be wrong of me to simply pretend that creating a mindset was easy, because success in this business is not easy. If it was easy, we would all be doing it, of course. But I'm going to show you today, I hope, that success is really, really simple. And hopefully I'm going to help you navigate through these very uncertain and challenging times with a number of ideas which you can add to your existing skill set. But before I do that, and recognizing that success is not easy, I want to first of all identify that there is something that gets in the way of achieving things in life and business. And that little thing that I'm referring to is called the little voice on our shoulders. And every one of us here today has been dealing with that little voice for many, many years, probably since we were about 7 years of age. But I'm going to show you today, and my first guarantee, many of you know that I love to guarantee outcomes. I want you all to take positive result of today. I'm going to show you that you can eliminate the little voice. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about when I refer to the little voice, this is the imaginary friend that you carry around on your shoulder. And this is the little voice that tells you at the end of the year, when you haven't achieved any of your goals, well, don't worry, Sandro, there's always next year. And then what happens is that little voice gives you comfort. It helps you to make excuses because, as we know, excuses are not our fault. Excuses are comfortable. And when we feel comfortable, we feel justified that we're not achieving the things that we want to achieve in our lives. So how do we eliminate the little voice? Well, two things to say. The first thing is that all of us are surrounded by negative influences. And there is no better example of that than the Discouragement Club. Now, the Discouragement Club, for those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, that's the little group of people in your life. You usually see them in the office, huddled in the corner of the room. They've probably just finished drinking a cup of coffee or reading a newspaper, and they are complaining about all the things that are going wrong in the world at the moment, all the reasons why they can't achieve greater success. Well, if my manager was better, I would be more successful. If the economy was stronger, I would sell more investments. If the weather wasn't so bad at the moment, my prospects would be in a better mood and more people would buy from me. The coronavirus, the economy, and all of the other challenges we face at the moment are not to fail. They are excuses. They are excuses. And the little voice on our shoulder, members of the Discouragement Club, and all of those other negative influences that we have in our lives are designed to keep us in the same place in life. So to be really successful, however many other ideas I share with you today, they will not help you to move to a different level unless you eliminate the influences of the Discouragement Club and you eliminate the little voice on your shoulder. How do we do that? Well, I am a believer, and I'm going to prove to you today, if you want to take the challenge on, of course, that you can eliminate the little voice. You can learn success in the same way that you've learned to swim, talk, walk, ride a bicycle, and drive a car. And for years, I think I've tried to prove that you can learn success, become subconscious, like a habit. One such way that I would encourage you to transform your subconscious thinking, because great habits are born and they live in your subconscious. The Discouragement Club and the little voice, they live in the conscious part of our minds. They are the ones that are more adversely affected by all of our surroundings, all of those negative influences that I mentioned earlier. There are two words I would love you to remember. And if you are in a position right now to write them down or to note them in your cell phone, just remember these two words. The words are discipline and regret. And here's a very important question I have for all of you. These two words is painful. Which of these two words is painful? Now, some of you might be thinking, well, discipline is pretty painful. And some of you might be thinking regret is pretty painful. But here's my second guarantee of the day. If we do not do the first one in life or in business, we will always get the second one. So the question we have to ask ourselves as a result of this webinar today is, are we prepared to suffer the relative discomfort because success is not comfortable? Are we prepared to suffer the relative discomfort of discipline to avoid the long-term pain of regret? And that is not a question I can answer for you. You have to answer that for yourself. But the way to turn your skill, every single person on this webinar today, I believe truly has the ability to be anything they want to be the very best version of themselves. But to do that, we have to eliminate all of these challenges, all this negative influence. Now, every one of us has at least one goal. What I would like to challenge you to do, because it is a challenge, as soon as you finish this webinar, life will start to get in the way again. And there will be reasons why you can't accept this challenge for a day or two, or maybe a week. Don't worry, I'll get round to doing it soon, your little voice will tell you. And you never quite get round to doing it. So to be successful, you have to take positive action as a result of this challenge. And you need to do that as soon as possible. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to think of 20 to 30 goals. Now, many of you are already thinking, hang on a minute, I don't have 20 to 30 goals. I only have 20 goals. But if you start to break down your life into different areas, maybe it's physical, family, business, travel, doesn't really matter what categories you use. Think of 4 to 5, excuse me, 4 to 5 different goals in each category. And you'll quickly find that you'll come up with 20 to 30 goals. Excuse me. Once you've got your 20 to 30 goals, you put the 20 to 30 goals on individual postcards or scraps of paper. Now, what's really, really important is you are not going to write these goals. And by the way, these goals are short-term, medium-term, long-term. They are big goals and they are really small goals. Maybe something that you're planning to do this coming weekend. Nice, easy, achievable goals, but mix them up with the big, unrealistic goals. And by the way, on the subject of goals, people do not fail in life because they aim too high and miss their target. People fail in life because they aim too low and hit their target. And that is another form of conditioning which we learned when we were small children. Typically, our parents would say to us, you want to be an astronaut? You want to think a little bit more realistically. That's not realistic. But nothing's wrong with an unrealistic goal. And I have many unrealistic goals. But what I know is when I set the bar really high, subconsciously, I do more to move towards that goal. And so I achieve more by definition. So these goals, these ideas, 20 to 30 goals on individual postcards. But what's really important is there are 2 rules that we must adopt when we are setting these goals. The first rule is we must write down the goals as if we have already achieved them. In other words, they have already happened. They are in the past tense. That is because our conscious mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. And so what we're going to be doing is drip feeding information to our subconscious mind so that it learns success like it learns those other things I mentioned earlier. The second rule is you need to combine right brain, which is the emotional response to any particular outcome. That's very important. So you need to describe how you felt when you achieved that goal. So one of my particularly unrealistic goals is to get myself into such great physical condition here on Men's Health magazine. Particularly unrealistic goal. It will probably never happen, but because I've written down on one of my mind changer cards that's what I call them. I'm writing something like appearing on the front cover of Men's Health magazine was testament to my diet and physical conditioning regime. Now, in my mind, I am reading these statements every single day. That's the other very important thing that we need to do. Read and without studying, without thinking, without analyzing, read the statements every single day, ideally about the same time every day, maybe before you go to bed. You must not forget to, and you must not miss a day. So read these goals every single day. And within about 30 days, you will start to act differently, think differently, behave differently. Really will to migrate towards you. We will talk later on about creating a brand, a personal brand where people find you, you don't have in them. And that's part of the art. Is not comfortable. You have to overcome these mindset challenges. We are surrounded by negative influence. But if you train your subconscious to be as successful at things that you've learned, walking, talking, swimming, riding bicycles, for example, you can, once you overlay this with a skill set, which we'll come on to talk about in a moment, you can be anything you want to be in this business. Now, I'm going to share a little story with you, but first of all, I'd like Leena to share her little story, because Leena has benefited from this mind changer idea, and I truly believe in her progress over the last few years. And I know that her change in mindset was a fundamental contributing factor to all that she's achieved in the last few years in particular. So Leena, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, as you can see, this picture looks like a very surprising picture, but these are my index cards actually posted in my washroom, on my makeup mirror, and also in my wardrobe. And as he said very clearly, the rule is that you need to be seeing these every single day, almost similar timings. So I have a same time in the morning to go my washroom and my makeup time before getting to the work ready. So that's timing I go in, and I follow exactly same. And I was thinking, why do I do 20? You know, I can't have 20 goals. But then I did question Sandro for that. And this book had an answer for this. It's like exercising your brain. Your brain had to build those muscles. Similarly, you have to repeat those goals. If you don't have 20, you can have 5 or 10. You can write them more. And if it is more, it's good. You're repeating them, you're reading them again and again. Your mind start registering that, and your mind start believing that. And as he said, the rule is also that you need to write these goals or these things which you are achieving in the past tense. So yes, I do write, like my end of the year annual income is on the board. I also do write my new home, which is in the construction, that this has to be done by so and so. My son has already changed school and he's enjoying those things. And my fitness, all kind of things which I'm inspiring, I'm going towards, and I'm looking towards end of the year to happen. It's all up there. I do remove these, which is already done. So then, or I do sometimes also change my mind. Some of the weak ones, I would rather stop putting it on place. I will replace them with much more solid one. So then I know that I'm on the track, and I really been enjoying doing this exercise, and it has contributed big way. I write my short term, my monthly income or monthly goal, or certain things which I need to genuinely finish, whether it's a process for my work or something, I will put it all there, and it's just getting registered in my mind. It's like how you do the push-ups once or twice. Now you do 10 push-ups to build in your muscles. Similarly, your brain needs that muscle to be built. 20, 30 cards will really help. I like more colors, so I put it with color one. You can do your way. But this is a gift from, I would say, because from Sandro. I did read recently another book where it was personality. It was talk about personality. So personality is not permanent. You can always change it. You just need a help of tools, mind changer tools. If you have a good tools, just exercise them, and it will help you change your mindset. As I said, Sandro's book also have 5 more mind changers. You can address to that book and see more mind changers, which will help you change the personality and build that perception towards to make things happen for you. Thank you for both, Sandro, once again. So I give you the floor back and let me know when you want me to start your slides.
Right now would be great, Leena. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
I've just been looking at the chat. So I want to say a quick hello to Lynette from Jamaica. Amazing that we have a friend from Jamaica join us, and my good old friend Jack Stone from the UK as well. So sorry if I've there's lots of you. Elvis from Dubai, amazing. So thank you all so much. So I want to share with you a very little, just a brief story, but it's not a great photograph because it was taken a very long time ago. But this is my mum and dad. This is my mum Carol and my dad Leo. And I think all you really need to know about my dad Leo is that he was a very successful businessman. He ran a very successful number of restaurants in my hometown in the UK, down in the southwest of the UK, for those of you who know it. And this photograph was taken in 1968, actually. And it was taken in 1968. I know that because in April 1968, when this photograph was taken, my mum Carol was very heavily pregnant with her first child. And that child happened to be the person who's presenting to you on the webinar today. Now, fast forward 7 years, and I'm the oldest of 4 children. My dad was quite a bit older than my mum, but very successful. We didn't really see a lot of him because, like so many parents, he would tell us that he was working for the better day, like us do now, tried to justify that he was working many hours to provide us with a beautiful home, great holidays, and all of the amazing things that we benefited from as children. But when I was 7 years of age, I discovered that my father had lung cancer. Now, unfortunately, it was a terminal condition. He spent 2 years fighting a very tough battle against a terrible disease, a disease that's taken many members of my family, actually, over the years. And when I was 9 years old, just as I turned 9, my father Leo passed away. Now, my mum at the time was 29 years of age, and she was a widow with 4 children, all, of course, under the age of 9. We lived in this extraordinarily beautiful house. There was a business that my father, all of the other amazing things that grew up with, just 2 years later were gone. My mother was declared bankrupt, the house was sold, the business was passed to another relative, and my mother, who had never worked, she was a stay-at-home mum, as so many are, and we found ourselves living in welfare accommodation. And it was tough. It was a real riches to rags story. Often we hear the story working the other way around, but for us, it was a fantastic, stereotypically brilliant life that disappeared very quickly. But I am a great believer. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Sliding Doors. I'm a great believer that life takes different paths. And just a few years later, my mum was lucky enough to meet a great man, and his name was Dave. You'll see him appear on the next slide. And Dave was to become in many ways, my father, because my father Leo passed away when I was young, of course. And so during my teenage years, this man, Dave, was to become my best friend. He got me involved in sports and theatre, and he even encouraged me. I remember in the very early days, I remember him telling me, Sandro, you can be anything you want to be. You just have to dream it, and you then just have to be it. And he taught me a lot about setting that bar really higher, but also to really believing in myself. And I have so much to be grateful for. Many people say to me, if you could have your time again, would you wish that your father was still alive? Of course. But the time I had with this wonderful man changed my life forever. And when I left university and drama school, dare I say, I went into financial services. And I can honestly confess to you all, I had no desire. I did not wake up one day, today is the day I want to be a financial advisor. And I know many of you probably fell into the business by mistake. And that's what happened to me. So 21 years of age, I looked maybe about 14 at the time. I didn't have any prospects. I had no knowledge, no experience, and I didn't even like my boss very much. So I had absolutely no chance of succeeding in the business. However, the problem was I listened to my little voice. I listened to my little voice say, you're 21, you look 14, you have no experience, you don't work for a great company. And for 2 years, I made excuses. At the age of 21, I didn't need to make a living really. I didn't have particularly grand plans for myself. And so playing golf and knocking around with my friends was much easier than work because it's much more comfortable. And every day when I returned home, I would look at this great man, my best friend in the world, and I would think to myself, this surely must be my best prospect. This must be the person I speak to before I speak to anyone else. My mum and my stepfather, Dave, had slowly rebuilt the life that we lived. They had purchased their welfare housing. We still lived in a 2-bedroom house, but we were all really, really happy. Dave and my mum had had another child, so now there was 5 children, and Dave and my mum living in this tiny house. But it was a fantastic 10 or 11 years that we spent together. But I spent 2 years procrastinating, thinking about all the reasons why Dave would not buy an insurance policy from me. They don't have much money. There was plenty of other things that become more important to them than buying insurance. And yet Dave, just like my father, was the breadwinner. He was the person that needed the insurance. But in my mind, I couldn't overcome this interference, this little voice that kept telling me, today's not the day, leave it until tomorrow. And I hear agents all over the world tell me how difficult it is to speak to friends and family. But speaking to friends and family is no different to speaking to anyone else, except that in our minds, we think it's different. And what I did after about 2 years, and I can't describe to you why I eventually found the courage to speak to Dave, all I simply said was, Dave, maybe we should have a conversation at some point about insurance. It would be wrong of me not to at least mention it to you. And in that moment, I learned that part of the business is to take a forward step, to stop worrying about whether someone would say yes or no, because that's what stops most of us taking action. We fast forward to a point in the future and then we replay the scene in front of us instead of focusing on the things we can control. Can we control picking up the telephone? Yes. Can we control having a conversation with the prospect? Yes. Can we share our message in terms of what we do? Yes. Can we control the yes or no? Well, not all of the time, but that's okay. Because if you reframe this, if you think that our job is to communicate the wonderful things that we do with lots and lots of people, irrespective of the yes or no, that's when your business will be transformed. Do not focus on the process. So I had this conversation with Dave. It was an embarrassing one. It was difficult. It was uncomfortable. But to my surprise, Dave said, yes, okay, let's have a conversation. And that conversation took place in December 1991, a full 2 years after I joined the financial services business. And that was my very first sale in this business that I found myself. And I'm prouder of that sale than I've ever been of anything that I've achieved since. And I will share with you in a while why that is. Quite apart from the fact that Dave was my best friend, and it was someone to whom I owed a great debt of gratitude. And it was at that moment I finally believed in what we did. And that actually is what helped me to become the one thing that I think I've always done very well, and that is to prospect. And I want to share a few moments, if I may, just talking to you prospecting. When I talk about world class, many will be thinking, this great, get my pen and paper ready. Sandro is about to tell us all the things that we've never heard before that is going to help us fill our diaries with quality meetings with prospects. Well, maybe one or two of those ideas might be new to you, but I'm going to spend some time reminding you of all of the things that you've done before that you've probably forgotten to do over the last 3 or 4 months. First of all, how many of us have contacted every single contact, every single person that is listed in our mobile device? My telephone, I don't know about yours, but my telephone contains 869 names and telephone numbers. I sent a message to every single person in my mobile telephone. Very simple message, but we're thinking, I need help, I need support. Wouldn't it be lovely just to hear from somebody offering some help or guidance, or just holding my hand through a process? What I've learned is that this is a moment in our history where the relationships you build now will last forever, because they become more meaningful when life is challenging. I want to share with you that I sent 869 messages, I got 648 replies, and I wrote 118 pieces of business on the back of it. And I'm proud to say, not because I want to impress you, but because I want to impress upon you, I'm proud of the fact that I did 118 new pieces of business and have just had my best 3 months ever in my career. And all I'm hearing from other advisors is all the reasons why they cannot be successful during these difficult times. But this is actually the opportunity to get on the front foot, to be proactive, to reach out to as many people as possible. So world class happens, and I can give you a good example in the world of investing. Many people would consider Warren Buffett to be a world-class investor, but he would be the first to say, like I would say, we're not bigger, better, faster, or stronger than anyone else. We just do the things that are uncomfortable. We do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So when every other financial advisor across the world is hiding under their desks, waiting for the problem to pass so that they can have another great conversation with their clients when the storm clouds move, that's the wrong way to approach what we do for a living. It's the wrong way to approach client relationships. They will not thank you for only contacting them during the easy times. They value us more when we contact them during the difficult times. So remember, there are lots of people in your mobile phone. A simple message, hello, how are you? I was just checking to make sure you and your family were all safe and well. If there's anything I can do to help you in any way, please let me know. And that is called visibility. People do not wake up in the morning thinking today is the day I need to buy some life insurance or establish an investment or think about my retirement planning. They remember you when you remember them. When they see you, when they hear you, when they feel you, that's when they reach out. So you have to become more visible. Go back over your diary for the last 6 months. There will be things that you have noted in your diary which you simply forgot to action. Follow up on a previous conversation. Maybe send some documentation to a client. There will be things where life got in the way and you simply forgot. Contact your top 20 clients. If I asked all of you to list your top 20 clients right now, more or less you could do that quite easily. Reach out to them, talk to them about the ways that they may be able to become an advocate of your business. People like ambassadors who can help to share what you do and the way you do it. The benefit to them, of course, is that when you are spending less time prospecting, you are spending more time looking after them, being visible to them and being available to them. Engage with other professional people. Right now, every other accountants, general insurance brokers, mortgage are all looking for the same thing that we are, which is new prospects. If I meet a new client and they talk to me about the fact that last year they moved house and they engaged the services of a very helpful professional lawyer, I make a point of finding out a little bit more about the lawyer. I get a name and a telephone number, and the following day I contact the lawyer. Hello, Leena. My name is Sandro. I'm calling you today because our mutual friends, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, said that you were fantastic when you helped them with their house purchase last year. I run a successful financial planning business. Many of my clients move home. Many more ask for recommendations to a good lawyer. Since you come so highly recommended, could I possibly talk to you about introducing to that, because they are in the same business that we are, which is acquiring new clients. And over time, you build a relationship with these people. And the principle of reciprocation is that what I do for someone, usually 9 times out of 10, they will do for me. And that's a very, very good way of growing our business. We have about 33 professional connections, so that when I'm sleeping, I'm on vacation, or just something that's non-financial services related, I'm still receiving a steady flow of introductions from professionals or from my advocate clients. And then the other thing to mention is social media. And what I try to do is to become as visible on social media. There is no better exponent of this craft than my friend that I mentioned earlier from South Africa, Cobus Klein. I mean, I don't know how the guy I post as much as he does, but he is the most visible person I know. And of course, his job is made much easier when people see him all the time. So search on the internet if you don't have any material, comment on other people's posts, send simple messages to people. There's all sorts of things that you can do to be and get really busy at the moment. And when I talk about being busy, I don't talk about being non-productive or wasting time. I mean, get really busy, engage with people, because that, after all, is the way that we are successful in this business. And on the subject of visibility, if I were to ask all of you to name, and I know you're from different parts of the world, so the answers may be different, but if I were to ask people from the UK, for example, to name a famous male chef, what's the first name that most people would come up with? Well, ask them to name a famous female chef, most people would probably think of Nigella Lawson. However, these are not the best chefs in Britain. These are 2 people that spring to mind because they have perfected the art of visibility. Everything they do is about marketing themselves. And so what's very important here as a message is, it is people's perception of us that is important. It is not what we sell, which company we work for, how many years we've been in the business, what qualifications we have. It is people's perception of whether we are worth talking to or not. And that is an area that many, many financial professionals do not spend enough time getting right. Number 3, be a brilliant closer. Now, when I talk about closing, is of course a phrase that trainers have used for centuries that says, when you get somebody in a position where you've positioned a solution, you've made a recommendation, then you have to close them. But I'm a great believer, and I'm going to prove to you today that there is no such thing as being a great closer. To be a great closer, automatically, you have to be a great opener. If you are a great opener, closing takes care of itself. It will just happen automatically. So let me share a couple of thoughts around great opening. To be a great opener, you have to take control of the client relationship. Too many financial advisors the world over will allow their clients to dictate the terms of their relationship. What I mean by that is you meet somebody Tuesday evening and you sit across their kitchen table and you say something like, "You've been recommended to me. I would love for you to be a client. Let me get some information from you." Then the client starts to ask questions. "Well, I want to think about it. Now's not the right time. Let me get a second opinion. Let me compare price. I have no money. Now's not the right time. Call me in 3 months." These are all objections that we've heard many times before. The reason we get objections is because we don't open well enough. So I'm going to suggest respectfully that from now on, when you meet and engage with a prospect for the first time, you simply start with 2 simple rules. Mr. or Mrs. Jones, the reason we are meeting today is, I think, because of 2 very important reasons. Reason number 1, the main reason we're meeting today is we like, trust, and we can work with each other, build a long-term relationship. Would that be fair? And of course, the prospect will logically say, okay, that sounds fine. But what's really important about what I've just said is it is for us to decide whether we like, trust, and can work with each other. In other words, I am not asking the prospect to decide whether I will be their financial advisor or not. We are going to make a joint decision. If the client is going to raise lots of objections, is going to be very difficult, I have now established the right to hire or fire my client just as they have the right to hire or fire me. That's really important. Number 2, the other reason that we're meeting is for me to see if I can help you. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I don't know if I can help you at the moment, but what I'm going to do with your permission and confidentially, of course, is I'm going to gather some information, and it will be very informal, like a conversation. And I would like you to simply remember that the quality of advice I'm able to give you is based entirely on the quality of information you give to me. Now, the reason I say that is I want my prospect to be accountable for the advice I give, because what that will do is it will eliminate the number of complaints I get in the future. If my client is not going to give me the information I need, I cannot possibly give them the best advice. And a good example, good analogy is no one on this webinar today would go to the doctor, would sit in the doctor's chair and say, "Okay, doctor, guess what's wrong with me?" Would they? You give the doctor as much information as you possibly can so that he or she can make a diagnosis. That's the way it works. And in our profession, it is no different. But over the centuries, we have been conditioned to become subservient. Please, will you become a client? Please think about it. Let me try and handle this objection. That is not the way to successfully open if you're serious about being a good closer. So those are the 2 main rules that you start every meeting with. However, this is a perfect opportunity to deal with any other rules that may cause you problems. I mentioned earlier that I started in this business when I was 21. I looked 14. I knew my prospects would be thinking, this guy looks like a boy. How is he possibly going to tell us things that we don't already know? And so as part of my opening, I say, now, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, before I gather any information, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I look really young, aren't you? And Mr. and Mrs. Jones would look at each other and they would smile because they knew that I had identified the first potential problem. And they would say, well, you know, you do look a bit young. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I realize that I look young, but I'm pleased to say that I can offer you something that most financial advisors in the UK cannot offer you. And they would say, okay, what's that? And I would say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I can offer you long-term service. And Mr. and Mrs. Jones would laugh, but in that moment, the elephant was out of the room. There was no more objections around my age and my experience. We can deal with other things. Maybe your company has received some bad press.
Hello.
Can I continue?
Yeah, I just want to just touch up on this positioning thing because
Leena jumped in.
So I want to touch up on the positioning thing, how you open it well, and because I learned it so well and practice along with Sandro on that, it actually eliminates half of your objections, because I do deal with a lot of HNIs, and I see a lot of people who wants to deal with HNIs, they just can't handle them because they sometimes just say, oh, I just got a great HNI client, he wants to buy out from me, but because you did not lay out the whole process when they deal with you, you did not take the control in your hand that, come on guys, we gonna decide to work with you. So it's a psychologically, which we are putting into their brain that, yes, we are gonna decide it together, and explaining them the process, how Sandro said that, how it's gonna work with us, the quality of service will come and the quality of information you give. I do see a lot of people just tell me, a lot of advisor, which I deal with, they tell me that they did not give me all this information. But if you lay down everything in the front, this is all which is required in order to work with you together, then they are already set in their mind. They will not give you these kind of objections later. Oh, why do you need this? Why do you need this thing? There are a lot of demanding clients, but if you set the tone in the beginning, positioning yourself so well, trust me, such kind of objections are nowhere in the process. It's much more smoother process once it is completely informed and well. So yeah, over to you, Sandro. That was my experience, learn from you. So I like to share it with you.
Thank you, Leena. And it was actually a perfect opportunity for me to glance down the chat group, and I do want to take the opportunity again to recognise that one of the nice. His name is Manmohan Abdullah from Malaysia. We call him Mohan. He's far more famous than me. He's a lovely, lovely man, and his dear wife does an awful lot for charity. So I want to recognize Mohan, and of course Erica Silva. She's a lovely lady from Mexico. So welcome to all of you that have kindly sent messages. Okay, so in that moment when we are opening, we can cover any other potential objections that we might get. Costs and charges, explaining the way we get paid. So I say to my prospect, now before we go any further, I would like to explain I get paid in two ways. I get paid a fee or a commission if we can decide to do some business together, and I get paid in the form of personal introductions. In other words, my clients are kind enough to introduce me to friends, family, and work colleagues. And subconsciously, as Leena has been saying, what we're doing is we are sowing a seed that lets this prospect know that that's what happens, that it's natural. We don't have to wait until we present the quote in order to start explaining things like commission. And then we try to justify things, and then we're reactive, and that's what breaks down the trust element that is so important in an advisor-client relationship. So I've mentioned objections. Let's just talk a little bit about objection handling, because that's number 4 of the 6. And many advisors come to me and say, oh, I get all these objections. People want to think about it. They want to compare a price. They've already got a financial advisor. And by the way, when people say they've already got a financial advisor, that's just the first and most convenient thing they can think of to mention to you. Very, very few people in my experience have already got a financial advisor. Nevertheless, we get these objections all the time. And the reality is that most advisors do not know how to successfully deal with objections. Now, I've heard many people talk about objections as a buying signal. And I'm sure you've heard that one before as well. I'm not sure I can believe that really, because an objection is an objection. Objection comes from usually a negative place. It has been created because someone is not sure about something in particular. So I'm not necessarily sure it's a buying signal. But nevertheless, most advisors don't know how to handle objections. And what happens, unfortunately, is when they hear, and let's take a really topical objection at the moment. What I'm hearing many advisors tell me is all of my prospects want to wait until after the end of this global pandemic. Let's wait. Now, of course, if I'm busy, and I always want, going back to that word that I mentioned before, perception is very important. I want my clients to know that I am busy, or at least I want them to perceive that I'm busy. So I'm not simply going to say, okay, no problem, I'll call you again in 3 months. I'm going to be saying to my prospect, I'm busy, you're busy. In 3 months' time, you will still be busy and I will still be busy. And what will happen is we'll have another call, then we'll set a meeting. And in other words, we're not going to end up meeting for 6 months. That's not the way that I work effectively. Why don't we put a date in the diary now? And if nearer the time we have to change it, that's better than simply deferring for a few months. But let me take you through, for any objection, let me take you through a simple 3-step process. And if any of you want the full script for this, because I thought of 6 or 7 the most popular objections that people raise, I've actually got a script that through Leena, I'm sure we can arrange to send you if you send us a note. And let me take you through these 3 steps, which is on the next slide. The first thing that I need to counsel, I need to point out, is that most financial advisors, unfortunately, when they hear an objection, they create conflict. And they create conflict very subconsciously. When a client says something like, I want to think about it, the instinctive human reaction from the advisor is to say, what do you want to think about? The problem is that in that moment, by using those words, you create conflict. You create a barrier between yourself and the prospect. I've got no money is another objection. But if you've done a fact find and you've realized that they do have some spare money potentially, instinctively, we want to say, well, you have some net disposable income. Why are you suggesting that you have no money? That is called creating conflict. So to be successful, to handle objections effectively, we need to follow a simple 3-step process. Number 1, hopefully Leena can hear me and she can move to the next slide. There we go. 3-step process. Number 1, we must 100%, that's what the 100 stands for, we must 100% welcome the objection. Now, I did not say agree with the objection. So if someone says, I have no money, instead of creating that conflict that I mentioned earlier, please mention that. And in doing so, what we do is we disarm the negative thought in the prospect's mind. And it gives us the opportunity to explore this challenge or problem in more detail. Now, if they say something personal, like, I don't like you, or I don't like the company you represent, then of course you do not say, I'm so pleased you mentioned that, because that would sound a bit strange. In that particular situation, just simply use the words, thank you for being so honest. That is still welcoming the objection. Number 2, step number 2, E stands for empathy. Empathy is the basic building block of all human interaction. The way to create empathy in this situation is to say something simple like, if I was you, Mrs. Jones, I would feel the same way. If I was you, Mrs. Jones, I would think the same way. And that is creating empathy. It is showing your prospect that you are connected on an intellectual level. That's very important. The most important part of the process is what comes next. Step number 3. And step number 3 is ask a logical question. Let me repeat that. Ask a logical question. Now, when you ask somebody a logical question, the answer will always be yes. The left side of our brain is where logic is processed, and in the right side of our brain, it's emotion. Many advisors do not understand that when prospects make a decision to work with us, they need to justify it with their left brain, but they need to want to do it with their right brain. We do not buy with one or the other. We buy with both left brain and right brain. Do I want to do it? Can I afford it, for example? So left and right brain working in tandem. However, when you talk to somebody about objections, if you ask a left brain question, if you ask a logical question, the answer will always be yes. 100% of the time, it will always be yes. Now, if it's no, you need to run away from that prospect as fast as possible. Because if you're dealing with someone who does not think logically, that is a good reason to be very worried. So ask a logical question. Let me give you an example. Somebody says to me, Sandro, I've got no money right now. Thank you for being so honest, or I'm really glad you mentioned that. If I was you, I would be thinking the same way. And if I could show you how I work with my other clients to create money they didn't have before they met me, would that be of value? And if I was role playing this with you right now, not one single person on this webinar could possibly say no to that question, because I'm not asking for you to become a client. I'm not asking for your business. I'm simply asking for the opportunity to explain what I do with my other clients. And that prospect will always want to know. They will always say yes. I don't have time to go through all the potential objections, but as I mentioned, we do have a script to cover most of the objections that you will probably come across when you're meeting with your prospects. Okay, in the last 10 or 15 minutes, before we get some questions, I just want to cover off the two very other important rules to success in this business. As I mentioned before, focus on the process. From this moment forward, I do not want a single person on this webinar to ever worry about the yes or the no. That is the thing we can't really control. Now, we can develop the skills that I've shared today to help us improve the numbers of prospects we turn into clients, but sometimes we will get no. Now isn't the right time, and sometimes we will get clients that we need to walk away from because they keep deferring us. They can't make a decision. There's always something in the way. I'm going to also empower all of you to tell your prospects that this doesn't work for me. This is the third meeting that's been cancelled. I need to work with people who are really serious about becoming financially more successful. Can I suggest that we leave things for now? Here's my card. In 6 months, if your situation is changed, then you can call me and I will be happy to talk to you then. Now, the moment we start to position ourselves in the effective sense, they do what we do. Every human being feels bad when they're being rejected. So don't be afraid to sometimes push back against a client or prospect who is not being very cooperative, because 7 times out of 10, in my experience, they will step forward and they will say, I'm so sorry, today was a bad day, now's not the right time, come and see me next week. And the moment that happens, you are back in control of that relationship. Sometimes 3 times out of 10, you don't hear from them in 6 months. But you know what? Those are the 3 people that were never going to become clients anyway. So why waste another 6 months chasing them? With regard to process, think about all the things that you can do to stay visible. So calling your clients on their birthday, not many advisors do that. And yet the only people that ever call me on my birthday are family. Why not be the one professional who calls and says, hi, Mr. Jones, this is Sandro, just ringing to wish you a happy birthday. You do not add the words, oh, and by the way, in 2 weeks' time, it's time for me to come and see you again for your annual review. It's, hello, Mr. Jones, happy birthday, no other reason for the call. And most of the time, Mr. Jones will say, thank you so much, that's really nice of you. By the way, I'm glad you called, I need to talk to you about something. Visibility. And I say, Mr. Jones, today's your birthday, I'll call you next week if you want to discuss anything else. So genuine reasons for call. There are sometimes no particular reason to call. Just send somebody a note on an email. Hi, how are you? Pick up the telephone. Haven't spoken to you for a long time. Saw that you've just had a baby on Facebook. Congratulations. Visibility. And when someone says or does something nice for you, send them a greeting card. Thank you so much for the personal introduction. Handwritten notes are so much more personal than an SMS or an email. And finally, probably the most important one outside of mindset, and that is to take action. Now, I want to share with you a very simple idea that I'm going to give you as a piece of homework. I would like you, as soon as you can, to draw on a piece of paper a rectangle. And in that rectangle, I would like you to create 6 equally sized boxes. Now, in box number 1, which will be the top left-hand box, I want you to think about something that has been messing with your mind for the last few weeks or the last few months. And what I mean by a mess item, what I mean by one of these simple, easy to achieve goals, this is the thing that when you have walked in through your door at night, you see the light bulb that needs changing because it hasn't worked for about 3 weeks. Or you've been meaning to file those bank statements for the last 3 months. Or there's a drawer that needs tidying. Or the cutlery drawer in the kitchen just needs sorting out or cleaning. The jobs that you are constantly reminding yourself, tomorrow is the day that I will do that particular job. And as we know, tomorrow never comes. So that's the goal that you are now going to put in box number 1. In the next 4 boxes, 2, 3, that's the top middle, the top right, the bottom left, and the bottom middle boxes, 4 other things from today's webinar, 4 things that you are going to commit to do. For example, SMS as many people in your phone book as possible. Maybe learn technique, for example. And in the bottom right-hand corner, that's box number 6. I would simply like you to write down something that you will do as a reward to yourself if you achieve the 5 other goals. So box number 1 must be the mess item, the simple, I'm going to do it tomorrow job, but tomorrow never comes. 2, 3, 4, and 5, 4 other things that you've picked up from this webinar. And in box number 6 is the prize box. It is the thing that you will do to reward yourself for doing the 5 other things. And I'm going to call this the 7-day sprint because I'm going to give you 7 days to achieve those 6 things, the 5 goals, and then to reward yourself. Now, if you are really, really serious about success in this business, you are not going to take 7 days to do those 5 goals. You are going to take 5 days or 3 days, or if you're really, really serious, you're going to do them today or as soon as possible. The other way that you can achieve greater success, instead of 5 goals, you might be 8 goals or 12 goals or 11 goals. It doesn't matter. But more goals, as long as they're small and quite easy to achieve, don't make them too big. Reward yourself at the end. And when you've ticked or checked all the boxes, you write down 6 new goals or 5 new goals and you reward yourself. And what will happen if you combine this simple action planner with the mind changes that we mentioned earlier, and you start to learn some of the skills that we've been sharing today, within the next 30 days, you will see your attitude, your relationships improve, and your business levels rise. And if I'm wrong about this, I guarantee at my own cost, I will send you a copy of my book in the world, as long as honestly you can tell me that you've done all the things that I've shared today and they don't work. If they don't work, then I will send you a copy of my book at my own cost to apologize for wasting your time. Okay? Final thing, and I think really it is the thing I promised I would do earlier on. But before I tell you about it, I want to remind you that your success in this business has nothing to do with price, product, knowledge, experience, age, or the company you work for. It has nothing to do with any of those things. It is based on your ability to take information and apply it, not once a week, not once a month, every single day. There are many other things, of course, I could share with you. But before I close and hand back to Leena to handle questions, if there are any, I just want to finish off my little story that I started earlier. And I know some of you have heard this before. I'm not going to apologize for that, because it's really important that we understand what an amazing job we do. And I think in the last few months, it's been very easy to lose sight of what a great and noble profession we serve and the amazing things we do for so many people around the world. The fact that we literally change people's lives beyond the medical profession, it's difficult to think of a better profession to be in. This is my stepfather, Dave. He was like a dad to me. And as I explained earlier, he was my soulmate. He was my best friend. And I stand before you today thankful to him for all the things that I became, those great old-fashioned ways of doing things, my pleases, my thank yous, acknowledging the way people supported me, building great relationships, but above all, setting that bar really, really high, believing that I could be anything I wanted to be. I'm really embarrassed about the fact it took me 2 years to get comfortable, to stop making excuses. But the reason I wasn't TOT in those first 2 years is because excuses were comfortable. I lived in a comfort zone. No person, Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, I can think of many, many very successful people. And if you've read their books, there is one common thing that runs through all of their successes. And it is that they spent a lot of time feeling really uncomfortable on that journey. In December 1991, I felt really uncomfortable having a conversation with my stepfather, Dave. But to my surprise, he bought the policy. And I'm proudest of that sale for a reason. Because I almost spent the rest of my life with the pain of regret. But by taking some disciplined action, I was able to save not just my mother, but myself. Because in February 1992, just 2 months after Dave became my very first client in this wonderful business, Dave, just like my father before him, was diagnosed with cancer. But it was this time a very, very aggressive form of cancer. It was in his stomach, his esophagus, and just within 1 week of his diagnosis, Dave was in hospital and Dave was dying. Dave was a very, very proud man. And although I have many siblings, I have 3 sisters and a brother, we took it in turns to sit by his bedside over many days in that hospital. I truly believe found that moment. He wanted that moment with me, his eldest son, if you like, to share the final words which have inspired me for the last 29 years. In those final moments, as we sat alone together, he held me by the hand, he squeezed it really tight, and he said to me, "Son, thank you for what you did for your family. I am so proud of you." And those, unfortunately, were the last words he ever spoke. But in those moments of reflection, after I heard those words, and it took me many months to really piece it all together, I realized that the most important thing that he told me that day was the word did. Thank you for what you did for your family. Not thank you for what you will do for your family, not what you've written down as a goal to be a future, not thank you for promising so many things, thank you for what you did. And my final question to all of you today, and I do want to thank you for joining this webinar, but my final and most important question is, I don't have the answers to your life. Only you have those answers. What you choose to do with your life is entirely up to you, of course. But my final question is this: What will you do as a result of today? What will you do that will change the lives of a prospect or a client or your family? What will you do that will change your own life for the better? Thank you so much.
All right, cool. So here we go. So I need to stop this thing. All right. Thank you so much, Sandro. I think you deserve a glass of water now. You know, it's so hard when we are actually on a screen and we can't see people, but we still need to communicate the message with the same spirit. I must say this is really, really incredible. It's not so easy to do it when you're not able to see people and the reactions. But the chat is really helping me out. I'm seeing a lot of people reacting and sending the messages. I must recognize a lot of my friends being up there, and they are all thanking you, Sandro, Veronica, Gail, Mohan, of course, Sadiq, Amit, Kiran, and friends from different parts of the world. I may not be able to take all the names out, but thank you so much for being there. I will take few questions for sure. I have a couple of questions. But before that, I need to answer Sandro's question. Sandro said, what are you going to do? So yes, I had my draw thing, the actions. Sorry, but some of the people did mention that his internet was getting, the connection was not so great. Sometimes you were losing it out. So I can quickly summarize most of the highlights of the video, highlight of the webinar. Great things out, which I'm picking it out. We mentioned about the visibility in this time is super important when you are away. And actually, people have more time these days to listen to you and to pick up your call. And those who are really busy before, they can actually take your calls now. Even a one message would help. Still, while the family be also back on the work as well. But I would say the speed is not as before. So yes, visibility is something a greater tool. I make sure as well that I have send the messages to most of the people. Yes, I still avoid sending messages to my relatives about this thing. So, which is Sandro mentioned, started with the family itself. But family, I have a different story behind that. I can share how the family actually provoked me towards to get into the insurance and do better in my job. So I did mention, I did call a lot of my clients, friends, and the business was just coming in just like that because I wasn't calling anybody for the business at all. It was just to stay connected, just to tell them, oh, hi, I'm around here. We are doing the same which we were doing before. And the calls started coming sometime a little later, a month later in April. People want to buy more insurance because they are even more scared, and something happened to the near one, friends one, so they want to make sure they are adequately covered now. Before, yes, we need to teach them or tell them that how much cover is enough. Now I'm seeing clients are coming to me and telling me, oh, I have very less critical illness, by the way. It should be much more. So isn't it a good time for them to realize that they have it and they are coming back to you? Visibility, always. So I would say this is a 12-month, 24/7 should be up there. Professional network. This is a great tool which we actually enjoy. I do work with auditors and lawyers as well. That's where, and they had a lot of time this time to connect with us and having worked with. We had one greater, very big lead came in with one of my connection. It's sometimes, I do hear not many leads come in. Oh no, it doesn't happen that way. If you have more professional network, you never know what's coming on from where. So I do have my 60% of business coming in from my professional network as well. So I did enjoy my last 4 months actually. And initially I was thinking, survival is more important in this year. It's not about the growth, but I would say, no, it's actually different picture happened to me. More than a survival, we had actually closed very, very big clients in the last 3 months because those were in a pipeline of a couple of years, and they now realize how serious for them it is to get insurance on place or financial planning on place. All right, and actions which he has described very quickly in a box, which is your 6 columns in one box, right? And that's where you reward yourself as well, which is the end of it. But the first thing first, you always see so many webinars and you probably have no takeaways back, or maybe if you have so many takeaways and then and eventually you're not doing any action on that, is just another time waster. So I'm sure here, this one where we are talking about that your time is important, our time is important as well. So yes, write down your action before even you walk out from the room, which is you are right now attending this webinar. Just write down those actions and then walk out. Probably that will help you to stay on your plan and reward yourself. I never forget to reward myself. That's encouraged me all the time. Whether it's my me time, my spa time, or anything. Spas are like closed these days, but yeah, I do make sure that I reward myself so well. Okay, coming to the questions for Sandro, I did have a question for you, Sandro. Even though we already announced in our poll that you will win the book, and Sandro is giving away the book on certain things which you have to follow. So you don't need to buy, but still some of the people who are definitely not going to win the book, Sandro, people want to know how they can buy your book, which is Dare to Be Different.
Sure. If you want to buy a copy of the book, you can either, I think they're, well, I know they're for sale on Amazon, so that's probably the most straightforward way for many of you. If you do not have access to Amazon or you can't find it, just send me an email, sandro@sandroforte.com, and we will find a way to get it to you.
Okay, so you got the email address up there, right? And interesting question coming to me. Best marketing tip. What would you give away as your best marketing tip? You are pretty famous and you always make sure that you are all around up there. You've been speaking to many countries as well as a great speaker and one of the best financial advisor in UK. So any particular tip which you want to give away for marketing?
Hopefully I've covered a few of them today. I think as a general comment, most financial advisors are not good marketeers. They're generally not very good at marketing themselves. Many of you I know are very, very good, but most aren't in my experience. I heard a very good, talking about my friend Cobus Klein from South Africa. I spoke at a conference the year before last, time flies. And I heard a very good speaker there who talks about becoming iconic. And the 3 rules to becoming iconic were quite simple. 1, develop a really good personality. And I think that would be my marketing tip number 1, is if you can develop who you are as a person, and mind changes will help with that, no question. If you can become the kind of person that people want to be around, that people really like and really trust by definition, then you will find the process of engaging new clients much more straightforward. Step number 2 to marketing or to becoming iconic was to create better education. And when we talk about education, we don't talk about becoming more academic. I know many very well-educated failures in our business. When I talk about education, I talk about knowing your stuff, about giving information in a really easy to understand way. And then the final part of that marketing plan to becoming iconic is to be really visible. And I've given you a few examples today. But when I talk about visibility, as Leena mentioned, social media posts, we all read newspapers, whether online or the physical copy. If you see a good article on a new piece of tax legislation or something that's happening in the world that may be of interest, just photocopy it or take a cutting and then send it to a client saying, I saw this and I thought of you. I thought it may be useful. The reality is the trick to marketing in our business is to make sure we communicate with as many people as we can. But one simple rule I would ask you to remember is we have discovered in my business, Forte Financial, the number of communications with a client each year is 5. More than 5 and you start to become quite annoying. And if you communicate only once or twice, you're not visible enough. So the question is, what are the 5 ways that you can communicate with somebody over the course of 12 months? Birthday telephone call, thank you note for an introduction, maybe a cutting from a newspaper or a magazine. I can leave you to decide what those are, but ultimately 5 connections with I call them touch points. 5 touch points with a client is the optimum number of communications in order to effectively become as visible as possible.
That's great. And since you also mentioned already about the education, so I have a next question related to the education. So I have somebody asking me as, what is the course you will recommend to a fresher who just joined the financial professional? So any course you would like to tell them to or recommend them?
I'm sorry, Leena, I didn't hear that so well.
All right, so as I said, I have a question from a fresher who just joined the industry, and he or she asking me that, what is the course which you would recommend them to do as a fresher to get better in this business?
Okay. So that's a very easy one. You know, one of the things that when you are new to a business, and I think it's a human condition that we are very afraid to ask people for help. And someone new to the business,
Can you repeat that, Sandro, because you're
family.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. So as a fresher, what we're told as part of our conditioning is we're told, well, maybe you should wait until you've got more experience before you start talking to prospects. Maybe you should wait until you have more qualifications. But the reality is that once you have learned your job, once you have done the exams or the induction course, you know 99.9% more than the prospects you will meet. You have information that is valuable to help other people achieve success, financial success. So I would suggest, 1, never be afraid to ask for help. It is not a human weakness. 2, be as visible as you possibly can. And 3, communicate your message with confidence, because what you offer, whether you are new to the business or whether you've been in the business for 30 years, you still have the same value.
Agree to it. This is really good answer, because I remember when I was a fresher 7 years before and completely come from a different industry, what had helped me win my large cases from the beginning was my confidence. I heard this line of "take it until you make it," but honestly, eventually you have to do it yourself. You know, you can't be taking too long, but your confidence on your face is super important when you're dealing with your clients. You can't be expecting any business by having that sympathy on face. Okay, I'm new, I need some more business from you, I need some help. No, we actually offer help to client. We don't take help from the client, right? That's where I would say we become an efficient financial advisor to our clients to be more trustworthy for them. Sandro, I will finish the questions here. We run out of time. It's 90 minutes, and we always try to do a very crispy sessions to make sure that everybody stick to the screen that much time. And I really want to thank every one of you who've been here for this session. Please do send your feedbacks if you want to really hear something again from Sandro in the future. We'll probably ask him again to be with us. I'll say thank you from my side, and that's it from my side. Sandro, you want to say anything? And I'm done.
Just one final thing. Many of you have asked for a copy of the recording, so I think we'll get started with some people. I want to thank all of you yourself. That is the first step to achieving greater success in this business. So it was a pleasure spending time with you today, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon.